Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club Podcast, where every week me and Miss Boo take turns picking films to watch and talk about. Some are good, some are bad, but they are always fun at the Film Club. Miss Boo, how are you, and what are we talking about this week?
Hey, I'm good. It's October, best time of the year, so I'm doing great every day. And for our recording today, it's actually your pick. So I think you should tell everybody what we're watching.
Well, this week we're going to be watching House on Haunted Hill, William Castle film starring Vincent Price from 1959. And yeah, I very much forgot all of this movie before giving it a rewatch this week.
Did you know?
Yeah, I remembered it being much better than it actually is. Sorry, I gotta throw that out there. This is, well, I mean, you gotta admit, the movie's kind of bad. It's fun. It's really cheesy.
It's good. It's a good Spooktober movie.
Good is subjective, but we'll get into that. First, let me tell everybody a little bit about this film's background. So, this film is directed by William Castle, and for people who don't know, he was the big gimmick producer director guy of the 1950s. He would use like 3D in his films, or he would rig theater seats with little buzzers so people would jump when the Tingler got released into the theater. Ooh. The big one he did for this movie was get theaters to rig a skeleton to fly across the theater.
I mean, how badass is that?
I mean, say what you will, the man was a showman.
Exactly. And who wouldn't want to see, a huge skeleton just flying across the theater?
I mean, I can't think of many people who would anticipate that, because though he was a great showman, he was also incredibly cheap. Because, as you can tell in this film, the sets are not exactly great, and it also makes the house a little confusing, but that's besides the point.
It'd be like that sometimes.
It does be like that sometimes. But yeah, so House on Haunted Hill, which is campy, fun, and okay, I gotta get to it. It's just kind of a bad movie. It's fun, but it's kind of bad.
That's your opinion. I'm in the camp of, it's a good movie, it's cheesy, it really works for the month of October. Throw this on for a party, have it in the background. It's a lot of fun.
I think it works great in that sense of you throw it on at a party in the background, and it's fun because you can kind of like chime in and out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's painfully slow, right? And it's only like 70 minutes long, and it takes like 40 minutes for us to actually get to the part where they're now trapped in the house, and they're like now like they have guns, and they have to like wander around, and like people start dying. It's like 40 minutes in before something happens.
I mean, I think you would love being in a haunted house, being paid $10,000 to survive the night.
Well, yeah, that's called an escape room. But this
you
is
love
like,
escape rooms.
I do love escape rooms, but I already have that escape room movie. I mean, look, this movie, I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy it. It's a fun movie. It's campy. It's goofy. Vincent Price is chewing the scenery like a champ. But quality-wise, it ain't that great. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, this is a movie that I could definitely see somebody enjoying, but I can't imagine somebody saying this is their favorite film.
Well, it's actually Elvira's favorite film.
No shit.
Yes, it is.
Really?
Mm-hmm. The Mistress of the Dark herself, this is her favorite film. I could see why, because it has the late, great Vincent Price in it.
Yeah.
It's not just a horror movie, it's kind of a murder mystery movie. Yeah. I love the
twist.
I love the twist in it, yes.
The double twist.
Double twist. There's so much that I love about this movie. Yeah, it's done on the cheap, but I think they made it work.
I mean, it's making it work is interesting because all the props and everything really feel like you're watching people walk through a haunted maze, like Not Scary Farm or one of those things.
It's not about how much money you have, it's the story that you're telling. And I think, this is a pretty great story. It's different, it's unique.
I mean, yeah, it's unique for the time of 59, but I don't know, looking at it, it's just, yeah, it's a unique little story. We're going to get these people from all these walks of life into this house, trap them, and then kind of pit them each other in this creepy, spooky house, and they're going to have to fight their own fears, paranoia. There's like a murder on the loose, so you kind of have that little mystery thriller thing going on, but all in all, I think my issue is just the first half is so slow.
Well, I mean,
And it
you
feels like
kind of
there's
have
not
to.
a lot going on here.
Well, I mean, you kind of have to get a feel of the characters in the first half. You're figuring out who's who,
I don't
what's
think
happening.
I got a feel for half the characters. Like the writer lady, I don't even remember her name.
I mean, I'm terrible with names. It's like, yeah, I can,
You can
pinpoint-
relate to that one, right?
Yeah, it's like I can pinpoint, who's in the scene, but yeah, you kind of like Clue when you're trying to figure out who the murderer is. I think that's what they were trying to do, trying to give you time to kind of sit there and think, well, is it the lady that writes? Is it the other guy?
Is
or
it
is it the butler? Did
it's
the maid
always the
do
butler.
it?
My thing is the characters were just overall kind of forgettable unless you were named Vincent Price.
Vincent
And
Price.
his wife. Yeah, Carol
Omar.
Homart? Oh, that's
Yeah.
how you pronounce it. Sorry, I was like reading it and for some reason my brain could not understand what her last name was pronounced.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, but she's great. And I love their dynamic. All the scenes they have together where it's the husband and wife and they're like throwing venom at each other. It's super fun. I love that dynamic. It's really cool. But everybody else is like not that great. Are the other characters just never imparted to me any like a distinct characteristic I could identify them as? It's like, okay, none of them are like the funny one. They're all kind of dry. None of them are really the brave one, the smart one. It's the thing where I'm trying to describe them a one-word descriptor.
Yeah.
And they don't really have that. They're all just kind of these blank people that we describe as, okay, he's the fighter pilot, which means he's brave. But in the movie, we don't really see that. He's just this guy who's kind of got the hots for the typist girl.
Yeah.
And you have the therapist or the psychiatrist who's smart, but also just kind of a douche. And he's just there. I also don't remember his name at all. Which is bad because he's the other half of the conspiracy in this movie.
He is. I mean, it hasn't been that long since I watched the movie. It's just...
I mean, we watched it for this,
We
right?
watched it for this. I watched it recently for Elvira's 40th special. But it's more, I remember, like, my favorite key scenes in these movies. Or in this movie.
That was my thing about this, because when I brought this up, I was like, oh, yeah, I remember this, watching it as a kid. Because, I remember, Vincent Price is in this, the skeleton, the bad of acid.
Yeah.
What's his name? Pritchard doing that monologue at the beginning, and it's the superimposed face over the Ennis house.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I remember that stuff. I just didn't remember all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed myself watching the movie. It's just, I don't know, it's like, it's fine. I would say if it was on, watch it for about 10 minutes. Hopefully it's a part of the movie where it's good. But, you could probably miss the first... Okay, you could watch the first 5-10 minutes of this movie, miss the next 30, and you'd still be fine.
Yeah, but you want to get that interaction with Vincent Price and his wife in the movie, because...
Yeah.
They're so good together. They have a lot of zingers that they throw at each other.
Yeah. It's like, remember when you poisoned me, darling? Oh, you just ate something that didn't agree with you. Yes, arsenic on the rocks.
Yeah.
I like that. It's biting dialogue. It's good stuff.
There are, some good quips to this movie.
There's nuggets of gold.
Yeah. I mean, granted, they are the stars of the movie, including the skeleton, who does have a credit on IMDb.
I think that's the funniest thing about this movie, is people are in on the fact that this is kind of cheesy, so they have that cheesy Easter egg.
Yeah.
If you go on IMDb for House on Haunted Hill, the skeleton has a credit, and he has a very long and illustrious career.
Dude's a star.
It's a star. And they have little, like, bio and trivia stuff about him. Like, the plastic skeleton's a real actor. It's super fun.
I mean, the skeleton can't get a day off to save his life.
I know, he's in all these movies.
And he's not a plastic skeleton, he's actually a real skeleton.
That's way creepier.
Exactly. They couldn't afford to make
a plastic one.
A plastic one, so they're like, let's just get like one from like a cadaver or a medical school. So yeah, it's a real skeleton.
That is just how cheap these people are, right?
Hey, if there's not enough funding, you gotta cut corners where you could cut corners.
That's true. Where do you want to go to next?
Well, we talked a little bit about the characters, the actors.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about the Ennis house?
Yeah, because this is... The exterior is at the Ennis house, which is
Yes.
in Los Feliz, right? In LA. And we went there to take some pictures for the podcast or whatnot. And it is fucking huge. It
Yeah.
was surprising when we were driving up that hill and you see it. Because it actually is on this massive fucking hill in Hollywood.
Yeah, we were just going up circle after circle, just rounding this hill, and I just happened to catch a glimpse of it, and I just couldn't believe the sheer size of the building. I mean, this
massive.
thing was not a house. This thing was like
A manor.
not even a manor, like a castle. It's just massive, the size of this building. Beautiful, but not what you expect to see in the middle of homes in a neighborhood.
Yeah, and I mean, it is one of those things where it does speak to, like, the resource filmmaking of this. Because, William Castle would do anything to save a buck. That's why all these sets that you see in the movie... Because the outside is the Ennis house, and I'm assuming it's shot at night, and it's not that much, like, time there. So he probably was there in total of a day.
Probably.
Shot everything, and then that was it. And then all the interiors were just already pre-built sets on a bunch of different lots.
Yeah.
I think one of them was the interior for some like TV show, or like he was stealing a bunch of like sets from like the Paramount lot that they would like go in and just shoot there. It's just like this really fascinating thing when you think about it. It's like, man, that the Ennis house, this big giant house, and he just kind of incorporated into there.
Yeah.
And then in every other piece of media for this, the house changes in every poster and re-release from this.
Yeah.
Which is great. But,
But I mean, that opening scene where you see the hearses driving to the house to drop off the guests, as soon as we rolled up that hill, it was the exact same frame.
Yeah.
Which...
It's like, it looked to me like the director is like, yeah, there's only one angle I can get this in without getting 400 homes and all of Hollywood in the background.
Yeah, so it was kind of surreal to be there. Very ominous, because it's up on the hill, so it was very quiet up there. So I'm glad we went at the day, because I think at night...
You would have freaked out a little?
No, I think it just would have been a little bit creepier, but it was cool to be able to go there, take our photos for the podcast, and then drive down the hill and go to dinner afterwards.
It was nice.
It was.
But yeah. Another thing I kind of wanted to talk about, I guess, about this film is mostly kind of just how this film is, because this is the B-movie horror flicks of the 1950s, right? And
Edging its way into the 60s.
Yeah, 59 going into the 60s, but this was like the B-movies of that era, and I don't know if we get movies like this anymore, where, you can tell we get low-budget, like, horror flicks all the time.
Yeah.
But ones where they're very much, like, more spooky than scary, they kind of feel like a haunted maze or whatever at like an amusement park, more than a gore fest, as it were. And I don't know if we really get movies like this anymore. Is there any you can think of off the top of your head?
No, not really. I mean, everything B-movie now for the horror genre, it's like
slashers,
zombies. We don't really get that kind of haunted house feel. And with this one, it's just every scene is, oh yeah, I want to be running down the halls of that haunted house and just to like bump into Vincent Price. In these movies, it's just kind of like, okay, vampire, werewolf.
Pick your poison.
Yeah.
Go with the tropes. You'll make a little bit over your budget back. Rinse, repeat.
Yeah, because I mean, even paranormal movies now.
They're just paranormal activity movies.
Yeah, they're not like this where we're kind of dabbling in the paranormal, but we're not.
I'm still not convinced there's anything supernatural in this movie.
No, I mean, the ghost that we first see is, quickly debunked. That's the lady of the house, which
the fucking maid.
That scene is creepy.
Where she's just standing there in like the dark.
And then she gets pulled across the scene, so you could tell she's not walking.
She just kind of floats across. And that one, I saw that and I'm like, that's really weird. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a bunch of stuff in this movie that's really creepy. And it's... it's like the thing where they see the or like the secretary sees the dead wife Annabelle like floating outside.
I thought that was a
the
cool
window.
shot.
I thought it was cool. Yeah, I thought it was creepy. I was like, okay, that's really weird.
I mean, even the way that they had the rope slowly circling her legs, and then you have that reveal of her hanging outside. I'm like, I would have never thought of that in a million years. That's a really good concept.
It's neato. I mean, what is it? Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm pretty sure they stole that when they had to hang the guy with the bed sheet.
Oh
through
yeah,
the bars.
that's right.
I mean, there's stuff in this movie where I'm like, I can really see how this probably influenced a bunch of people.
Yeah.
I can see that this was a, fun movie. There are creepy elements for it. It's an effective, spooky experience. It's just like, man, there's some things in this movie that really don't hold up all that well. Some of the acting's a little bit too hokey for my taste, but it kind of holds together. It's one of those things where it's holding together just barely. Like, do you know what I mean?
I mean, I could see where you're going. I mean, for me, I feel like everything kind of works together. You know, again, this is like my kind of genre. I know you need something a little bit more with depth and a little bit more bite to it.
I guess that's true. Like, I like movies that have a little bit more chew to it, that are just a little bit more, there's more there when you bite into it. It's like,
a little bit more pretentious.
Oh, for God's sakes. No, not every movie that means something is pretentious.
I know, but you love pretentious movies.
So, I mean, this movie, like, just doesn't have a lot of shit underneath the surface. You bite on it and it's air after that, It's just a chocolate, egg that's only the shell and there's no nougaty center.
Okay, nougaty center, but...
Wow.
But let's talk about the twist.
Yeah, because the double twist of the wife and the doctor planning Frederick's murder, and then Frederick being a step ahead of them and double-crossing them and killing them. And it's one of those things where I like it because it plays into Frederick Loren, Vincent Price's character, being, this smart businessman. But then also I come back to, man, this fucking house ain't haunted. All those props were actually just really bad effects.
Well,
also,
yeah,
who was the monster hand?
But yeah, that goes with Frederick being the eccentric millionaire that invites the people, and it's, if you can survive the night, you'll get paid. So you're thinking, oh, hey, one of these people is either going to die or they're all going to die. Mm-hmm. And just getting that twist of, they're going to be safe. He just has these people here as an insurance policy for him to keep him alive from the wife and the doctor that are secretly together.
I got a question, because Frederick and Annabelle, Vincent Price, and the husband and wife, they just want to kill each other. From the offset, they don't like each other, they hate each other, they're only in it because he doesn't want to divorce her and give her any money.
Yeah.
And she's not going to leave him because she wants to hold on again and suck as much money out of him as possible.
Exactly.
But they're both pretty open with the fact that they want to just murder the other one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, it's you could just like chaka the other one. I mean, Frederick, it's noted that his other 3 wives have died, and it's implied he killed them.
Yeah.
And he got away with it, obviously. Why can't he just, like, do it without inviting a bunch of witnesses?
Because I think he finally found someone that is just as crafty as he is with the murder schemes, because she already poisoned him with arsenic. Uh-huh. So it's like he finally met his match. Met his match, and it's like, okay, now we really need to take it to, like, extra endings. And this is the end. This is the last point. And you think he gets killed by, I can't think of the girl's name. She's always screaming in the movie.
The secretary lady.
The secretary, there you go.
You see the depth of these characters.
I'm terrible with names, so...
She also has one line, and it's ah.
She has, like, more, but it's mostly ah.
Eek. No. I come on.
But you think that Vincent Price, or Frederick, is killed because she shoots him in the basement. Mm-hmm. And you think, oh, well, their plan did pan out. They crafted it in a way that she really didn't kill her husband. She got someone else to do it. And then, boom, he takes them out in kind of like one swing.
Yeah. with the skeleton.
Well, first, he disposes of him in the acid. Also, who has a vat of acid in their basement?
My point exactly. There's some things in this movie where questions arise that need to be answered, and they're never elaborated on.
I mean, to each their own, whatever you want to have in your basement,
No vats of acid. There's no reason for you to have a vat of acid unless you're trying to murder your wife.
I mean, I agree. I'd rather have a home theater in my basement, but this person decided vat of acid. And I love the gimmick where the guy that's considered the drunk of the group is kind of taking them through the house. And, oh yeah, this person was murdered here, 2 more people.
Oh yeah, Pritchard. He is probably the best character in this movie because you can tell that he's like affected by the house. He's really freaked out by it. He's superstitious.
Yeah, he's traumatized by this house.
Yeah, he's traumatized. He's really portraying it, and he has this weird PTSD thing going on. He's obviously has this like fractured psyche, and he's the one who's most like paranoid of everyone else.
Yeah,
and I'm like, man, I really wish we got more of him in the movie, because he's also the person that gives the intro to the film and is the one at the end where he's the one that signals the skeleton to swing across the theater.
Yeah.
Where he's like, oh, the ghosts are going to go home with you, and points to the screen, and the skeleton's supposed to fly around. Yeah.
But I just love that bit where he goes into the basement with all of them, finds a rat in the trap and just throws it into the acid. And then
the fakest rat skeleton I've ever seen in my life comes up out of the acid.
I love that gimmick. It's good. It's funny.
That's the thing. It's funny. I think that's the thing about this movie. If you look at it as this comedy, then it works a lot better than as a horror film.
It's more of a horror comedy, even though they consider it like a murder mystery horror film.
Yeah, but the problem is this movie's not scary in any way. Like, you could show this to a child.
Yeah.
And they would be fine, right? Like,
yeah, would
you have any hesitation showing this to like a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old?
No.
This is a pretty safe horror film to show a little kid.
Definitely. There's no gore. I mean,
there's no language. There's no racy subject matter.
No. I mean, occasionally you'll have someone carrying a head or that creepy ghost lady in the basement.
Yeah, but the problem is all that stuff looks so fake.
Yeah, and I think that's why it works, because you could tell it's fake. It's not real. You can
tell this is like the haunted hayride more than a Jason flick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even though the LA haunted hayride is supposed to be terrifying, so yeah.
But yeah, I know. It's just like a weird thing about this movie, and I'm also a little confused how it's survived this long in the public consciousness, because this got remade in like 90-something, 99,
yeah, somewhere in there, yeah.
And I'm like, why this film? And I know why. It's because Vincent Price is in this, and he retroactively became the horror movie god.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, I mean, but all of his work in like the Edgar Allan Poe adaptations, Masquerade of the Red Death, The Raven, Pit and the Pendulum, really good performances by him. He's really good in those. Last Man on Earth, really good. I'd say House of Wax is
really good movie.
Is better than this. So I'm like, how is it that House on Haunted Hill is a film that survived in the public consciousness for so long? Would it survive without Vincent Price? If you had another actor, right, who gave in the same like Vincent Price performance, right? Mm-hmm. Would this movie be remembered at all?
It might, because the story's so unique. It's so different.
It probably spawned a lot of those like one room, like people trapped in a room kind of scenarios.
Yeah, and this is also in the time of Universal Monsters, classic, horror monsters. So we're kind of straying off that path of monsters to humans and ghosts, things that we can't see. So we're kind of throwing a different dynamic in there of, oh, there's the monster. He's going to, destroy the village, to, oh no, a person is the monster. Who is it?
Well, that also gets to another thing, because this film is really unique in that way, because, yeah, we're talking about the Universal Monsters and all that stuff. Those were the standardized horror films before. Yeah. But this takes place in a very modern home in a modern setting, and the monsters are people and all this other stuff,
Yeah.
which people credit a lot to Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, and he was inspired to make Psycho by this film because he
Exactly.
was like, oh, they made a horror film, but it's set in modern times, and they did it on the cheap, and they made it so the monsters weren't monsters, they were just people trying to betray each other and kill each other.
Exactly. That was kind of his how he framed Psycho. He was like, you know what? Well, I'm gonna do a low budget horror film and see how I do, and it's just like knocked it out of the park. Critically acclaimed movie.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of sad to hear that William Castle kind of took from Hitchcock's movies after Psycho came out just to kind of
Capitalize on it.
capitalize
That's
and kind
the
of
thing
build
people-
his game
That's the
too.
thing that people, don't realize. William Castle, yes, he was a director. He was a quote-unquote artist. But that man was a businessman. He was in to make some money. And he made money making these kind of low-budget schlocky flicks. I mean, this and 13 Ghosts,
13 Ghosts, yeah.
I believe, were the ones that made the most money. Mm-hmm. And those are probably also why they got the remake treatment in the 90s.
But I mean, the remake for 13 Ghosts is really good.
I think the remake for 13 Ghosts is probably the best to come out of that remake craze of those, because they remade like The Haunting, Psycho. They remade all those like really early 60s and
Classics.
50s horror films. And 13 Ghosts is probably the best remake adaptation of that stuff we got,
Yeah.
if I'm being completely honest. But I don't know, it just feels like this film is really surviving on like the Vincent Price legacy more than its own qualities. I think it is surviving also on the fact that it is a direct inspiration for Psycho.
Yeah.
But I don't know, the film's quality on its own is just, I feel like it's all over the place, because some of it's like really good craftsmanship and some of it's just not. Man, my opinion's really changing on here, because I thought it was just straight garbage, and now I'm like, no, there's some good shit in here.
You flip-flop a lot.
I know, and this movie is really hurting my brain on that, because I'm like, I can't say it's bad because I enjoyed it, but all the stuff going into it isn't great. The acting's really hokey, the effects are really bad, the story's, though unique, is really basic, but I don't know, it might be a thing where I might just have to give it another watch to give it another run.
I mean, I wouldn't stop you. I think you should give it another watch. It's very fun. Again, great for October.
Yeah, this is a really good Halloween film.
Yeah,
I will say, I'll give it that. It really gets you in the mood for Halloween.
that and just Vincent Price's voice. I mean, hearing it, seeing him, it's always a treat watching one of his movies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this isn't my go-to Vincent Price film.
Mm-hmm.
My go-to is probably still The Last Man on Earth. Probably.
Mm-hmm.
The adaptation of, what is it, I Am Legend. I really like that movie.
Yeah.
Or like House of Wax. Those two are probably my go-tos.
Yeah, House of Wax is a really good movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, is this your go-to Vincent Price flick?
Definitely. I mean, I love all of his movies. I mean, I love any movie that he does voice work for, but this is probably...
Oh, never mind. My go-to is The Great Mouse Detective. I just remembered he's Radigan.
Oh, jeez.
Go-to is Great Mouse Detective, by far. Untouchable. That movie's amazing.
But yeah, I think House on Haunted Hill would be like my go-to because that's probably one of the first times that I saw Vincent Price as an actor versus hearing his voice in an animated short or film.
Yeah, I'm probably in the same boat with you, too, because I think this is probably one of the first horror films I watched when I was, like, really young.
Yeah,
And
because...
that's probably because this is such a safe and basic horror flick.
Yeah, because I think the first time I saw Vincent Price might have been Edward Scissorhands, but you
Not
remember
surprising.
he's only in the movie for so long, so
Yeah.
it's got to be like 5-10 minutes he's in the actual movie, so this is the one where he's in there for the entirety of the movie. So, love this movie. It's a cult classic. It's survived because the horror community is so strong in preserving these kind of movies.
Yeah.
So,
This also being Elvira's favorite film probably helped it along, too.
hell yeah.
But yeah, I kind of hit all my talking points. Do you have any last ones you want to get to before we wrap it up?
watch this movie. I give it 2 thumbs up, even though Dean's kind of on the fence about
I'll
it.
give it 1 thumb up.
He'll give it one
Okay. Thumbs up because it is fun. It's campy. It's cheesy. The acting's kind of hokey. The effects are kind of bleh. But honestly, it is a really fun watch.
It is. It's
and
fun.
That's the thing.
It's a little creepy.
Yeah, it's creepy, not scary. If you're not into horror flicks, you might even like this.
Yeah.
Because it's like you get the horror experience, but you're not gonna like cry yourself to sleep from nightmares from this.
No. I think it's a good stepping stone if you want to get into horror movies.
Yeah.
Watch a lot of like the 50s, the 60s movies because they're not terrifying.
They're not gory. There's not a lot of language. There's no nudity or sex. So all like the really taboo shit that we really get into in the horror genre in like the 60s and 70s ain't really here if you're anywhere in like 1950 whatever and back.
Or if you even want to jump to like the 30s when Dracula and Frankenstein came out, just to kind of see, how horror's progressed and how it's still very clean and appropriate for the big screen.
Yeah, but so I would give it 1 thumb up. Should give this a watch if you're interested, but it's not a must watch.
I think it's a must watch.
Well, we'll agree to disagree. But Boo, what are we watching next week?
Next week, we're going to be watching Halloween 2018.
The remake?
The remake.
My
and one
word.
of the best remake. Well, it's not even a remake. It's more of a sequel.
It is a sequel.
It's a sequel to the original Halloween 1978.
Mm-hmm.
And next week, we're talking about 2018. It's going to be a blast because should we spoil?
Yeah, you might
happening?
as well because you've been hyped about this for months.
You're kind of hyped too.
I'm a little hyped.
Don't downgrade it. So before we record this episode of Halloween 2018, we're actually going to be meeting some of the original cast from 78, and we're also going to be meeting the Michael Myers for the 2018 version, James Jude Courtney.
Yes, we are. We're gonna go to a signing. And it's like a signing meet and greet kind of deal. So yeah, we'll get to ask them questions about the movie and fun stuff.
Yeah, hopefully we can ask them a couple of questions, and we'll add that into our episode next week. So be ready for that.
And on that note, I am gonna give House on Haunted Hill a rewatch, and I will give my final verdict next time.
I'm surprised. I thought you'd be like,
This is weird because I've never had to rewatch a movie to form an opinion. But this one, I'm like, I feel like I'm just not giving it its fair due. So I think I might need to give it a rewatch. But we will see. Boo, if people wanted to hear about that, where could they go?
Well, if you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. But we're also on one more different location.
We are on the YouTube channel In the Frame, where you can find this podcast, the Film Club podcast, or you can also find the Film Odyssey podcast, which me and my brother do. We go through the AFI 100, looking for the best film ever made, or the new podcast, the Too Obscure for TV podcast, where me and my buddy David kind of bring up a film, talk about it. It's a really loose film conversation kind of podcast. It's not super structured yet, but we're getting to it. But yeah, Boo, any last words?
Stay spooky.
Peace.